will be in the mid to upper 40s. At 6 o'clock, World News Tonight is next.
World News Tonight, the U.S. says a small number of special forces are on the ground in Afghanistan. What is the U.S. planning next? The Bush administration says that anthrax found in New York, Washington, and Florida is all the same strain. So was there a single source? President Bush in China, all the talk is about terrorism. We'll take a closer look tonight at how to dispense all the charity money that Americans have given to help those who've suffered financially. It isn't easy. And another example of courage, finishing the trip that her husband began.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening, everyone. The United States has been attacking Afghanistan for 13 days now. The Pentagon briefing earlier today was the usual rundown on the number of bombs dropped and the targets, which the U.S. says were hit. There was no mention of what may be the most significant development since the air campaign began. ABC's Martha Raddatz is at the Pentagon with the latest. Martha.
Peter, what we know this evening is that there is a special operations with special operations forces ongoing in Afghanistan at this hour. We can't give you very much information about that. It involves special operations troops and helicopters inside Afghanistan. This is in addition to a small number of elite forces that are on the ground working with opposition groups. These special forces are separate from the reconnaissance forces who have been moving in and out of Afghanistan for the last several weeks. These new teams are paving the way for a post-Taliban regime. The elite fighters are positioned along the borders as well, in Pakistan and Uzbekistan, waiting for defectors or even refugees from whom they can gather intelligence. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, visiting Whiteman Air Force Base today, would say only the U.S. is providing food, ammunition, and money to anti-Taliban forces.
We want to help those forces in the country that are anxious to get the Taliban and al-Qaeda out of there.
But the Pentagon clearly wants the information out about special forces, a senior U.S. official acknowledging that it puts psychological pressure on the Taliban.
It doesn't know where it can hide. It doesn't know where it can move. The psychological impact is tremendous.
The air attacks remain intense, U.S. missiles ripping into Taliban barracks overnight, this one near Kandahar. Here, a surface-to-surface missile site is annihilated. A total of 90 strike aircraft were used in the latest wave of attacks. The Pentagon will give more information about the current ongoing special forces troops in Afghanistan later this evening. Peter?
Thanks very much, Martha Raddatz at the Pentagon. By the way, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees said today that a very large number of refugees left Afghanistan today, and that most of them were, in their words, panic-stricken, and the situation they described inside as chaotic. ABC's David Wright reports from northern Afghanistan tonight on what he can see from the inside.
As heavy as the bombing has been, relief workers still operating in Kabul tell ABC News that much of what the U.S. is hitting there is junk, old military hardware, and that the Taliban forces have successfully hidden most of their key military assets and personnel out of harm's way. The relief workers also describe Taliban morale as high because of the low number of military casualties. ABC News has also obtained this footage from Kandahar, the Taliban's spiritual capital, filmed secretly on a camera strapped to a bicycle. The bazaar is emptier than usual. In the distance, smoke rises from the area where the Taliban's leader, Mullah Mohammed Omar, is based. Today, the Taliban envoy to Pakistan returned from a visit to Kandahar. He insists that Mullah Omar is alive and well.
The condition and situation was normal in Kandahar.
But there is no question the bombing has taken its toll on Kabul's civilian population as bombs rattle residential neighborhoods. Tonight, 8 people crowded into a single Jeep for the dangerous journey across the front lines into territory held by the Northern Alliance.
What have you brought with you on your journey?
Just he has brought his clothes.
Meanwhile, efforts continue for a political solution. Representatives of Afghanistan's former king say a tribal council could take place as soon as next week for the very difficult task of choosing a government to replace the Taliban if and when they fall. David Wright, ABC News, Jabal Sarraj, Afghanistan.
We got the first pictures today from Afghanistan of those leaflets the United States has been dropping into the country. They are intended to convey the message that the U.S. is not the enemy of Afghanistan. President Bush, as you probably know, is in China, where it is already Saturday. He met the Chinese President Jiang Zemin for the first time. Mr. Bush is in Asia for the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Conference, which officially begins tomorrow. But today it was all about terrorism. And ABC's Terry Moran has this report. Terry?
Well, that's right, Peter. As he meets with leaders of China, Russia, and other key Muslim nations, this economic summit is turning into a critical test of President Bush's leadership of the sprawling anti-terrorism coalition.
This was the first meeting between President Bush and Chinese President Jiang.
President, morning.
Despite the decidedly chilly relations with the Chinese during his first months in office, today Mr. Bush praised China's response to the September 11th attacks.
There was no hesitation. There was no doubt that they would stand with the United States and our people during this terrible time.
White House officials say China, responding to U.S. requests, has closed its border with Afghanistan, opened its intelligence files on terrorists, and begun to freeze terrorist assets and cut off financial networks, especially in Hong Kong. But President Jiang cautioned Mr. Bush on the extent of U.S. military actions in Afghanistan.
We hope that anti-terrorism efforts can have clearly defined targets, and efforts should hit accurately and also avoid innocent casualties.
Jiang's concern is echoed across Asia, especially in Muslim Indonesia, where there were huge anti-U.S. demonstrations today. Just as the U.S.-China relationship is improving, the U.S. and Russia are moving closer together. Once again today, Russian President Putin reiterated strong support for the U.S.
But there may be trouble ahead in U.S.-Russia relations, especially when it comes to President Bush's plans for missile defense, which Russia opposes. It's just another sign, Peter, of how hard it's going to be for the U.S. to keep this coalition together. One thing the president intends to remind the delegates here of when he speaks to them today, 16 of the 21 APEC nations lost citizens in the World Trade Center.
Thank you, Terry. Terry Moran in Shanghai. Now, home again. Police made a dramatic discovery today in Philadelphia. Enough explosive to bring down a building was found at the city bus terminal. ABC's John Miller is with us tonight with the details. John, please.
Well, Peter, the explosives, half a pound of plastic C4 and nearly 1,000 feet of detonation cord were found in a suitcase at the Greyhound bus terminal. Philadelphia's Greyhound bus terminal was evacuated. The suitcase containing the explosives was checked into a locker on September 29th. When the owner failed to reclaim it, it was placed in the lost and found where bus station workers discovered the contents.
It's not available to the general public at all. It's military grade.
The amount of C4 and detonation cord would have been enough to bring down a building. Demolition experts use det cord to blow up buildings by wrapping it around the columns and beams and then triggering it. The Philadelphia Greyhound bus station is just a 40-minute drive from the West Trenton Postal Center, where a spate of anthrax-laced letters postmarked from September 18th to October 9th. So, of course, investigators want to know, is there a connection?
Scary prospects. Thank you, John. John Miller. There were 2 more cases of anthrax today, one at the newspaper The New York Post here in New York City and another postal worker in New Jersey. The government does now believe that the anthrax, which appeared in Florida, New York, and in Washington, was the same kind. It may have been treated differently, but the authorities also believe now that it could have come from the same source. ABC's Brian Ross takes us from there in Washington. Brian?
Peter, with the treatment of the anthrax victims proving so successful, each new case now has come to be seen as a helpful investigative lead. In particular, the female letter carrier in West Trenton, New Jersey, who has already recovered, but whose route is now turning out to be very important.
Agents could be seen today canvassing every house, apartment, and business on the route of the infected mail carrier in West Trenton. Officials in Washington said progress was being made, with one collection box singled out.
The FBI has been able to identify the site where the letters were mailed.
Officials at the College of New Jersey in neighboring Ewing told ABC News that FBI agents had been on the campus asking questions about the school's biology department. And some residents said they were concerned that someone in their neighborhood may have done this.
Over the last 12 to 18 hours, I've been inundated with phone calls from nervous residents.
Anthrax did not stop the delivery of the mail in West Trenton, although the West Trenton post office itself and a central sorting facility were closed.
Well, we're going to deliver our mail as usual, but outside apparently.
A third suspected anthrax case involving a postal worker was reported, and all postal workers in the two facilities were advised to start taking Cipro at their own expense. Officials also said they now know for a certainty from conclusive tests that the anthrax in each case to date has come from the same batch.
But it may have been distributed to different individuals to infect and descend into different communities.
And in New York, one more anthrax case. An assistant to the editor of the editorial page of the New York Post, with the skin form of the disease already healed.
Federal authorities tell ABC News that the mail carrier in West Trenton recalls something suspicious about that one particular collection box, and tests for the presence of anthrax in the box are underway. Peter.
Thank you, Brian. Brian Ross in Washington tonight. A couple of other questions and answers about anthrax. What can you determine by analyzing it? Well, you can learn a lot about its DNA and its genetic makeup, and sometimes you can understand how it was cultured and grown. But can you determine where the anthrax came from? That's more difficult. While you can determine certain attributes of the spores and make guesses, there is no definitive way to nail it down geographically. When we come back, the possibility that domestic terrorists are behind the envelopes filled with anthrax. Tonight, we'll also take a closer look at giving away $1 billion in charity money and deciding who deserves it most. And then a brief visit with the woman who took the flight her husband never finished to make a statement about flying.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Brought to you by Viagra.
Who'd you expect? Bob Dole?
Follow Mark Martin and the Viagra racing team this season.
Get to your doctor for a checkup and find out if a free sample of Viagra is right for you.
And for more information right now, race over to Viagra.com.
C. Move. Beat. The future of vitamin C is here. Ester C, a patented non-acidic vitamin C that supports your immune system and the health of your eyes, joints, and cardiovascular system. Don't settle for less. Ester C, your body will know the difference.
Ouch! Pain again? I thought your dentist said brush with Sensodyne every day.
I stopped when the pain stopped.
Keep using it. It keeps working.
Sensodyne every day. Now try Sensodyne Tartar Control Plus Whitening every day.
I'm every man.
And every woman who ever suffered from frequent, persistent heartburn.
If you've treated your heartburn and changed your diet, but it comes back 2 or more days a week, then you may know about the burning pain of acid reflux disease.
But there's something about acid reflux that I didn't know.
Over time, that acid churning up can wear away the lining of your esophagus.
I didn't know.
I didn't know.
I didn't.
But today, there's a purple pill called Nexium. It's from the makers of Prilosec. Just 1 prescription Nexium a day gives many people complete resolution of heartburn symptoms.
That could mean complete heartburn relief.
And importantly, Nexium is also proven to heal erosions in the esophagus caused by acid reflux. Only a doctor can determine if you have this damage. Other serious stomach conditions may still exist. The most common side effects of Nexium and Prilosec are headache, diarrhea, and abdominal pain. So talk to your doctor and call this number for more information and for a free trial certificate for Nexium.
Relieve the heartburn, heal the damage. It's possible with today's purple pill called Nexium.
In China today, President Bush said the U.S. has yet to make a link between Osama bin Laden's network and the anthrax in the mail. Mr. Bush did raise the possibility that someone in the United States with no connection to international terrorism could be involved. There are certainly individuals and groups which the government tries to keep an eye on. Here's ABC's Michelle Norris.
With almost daily reports of anthrax scares, law enforcement cannot rule out the possibility that the threats may be the work of homegrown terrorists.
We would be doing ourselves and the country a disservice to not be looking over our shoulder and keeping track of what the domestic right-wing hate groups are doing and saying.
Sources tell ABC News that it is unlikely that domestic extremists could produce the kind of sophisticated anthrax that was mailed to the Capitol because of the money, the expertise, and the precise equipment required.
But extremists here cannot be completely dismissed. They have proved their capacity for terrorism, from the Oklahoma City bombing to the 1984 case where Rajneesh militants caused a salmonella outbreak that sickened 700 Oregon residents. Literature produced by domestic militants often contains recipes for terror, and some extremists have tried to obtain biological agents. Former neo-Nazi Larry Wayne Harris was arrested twice for possessing bubonic plague, and again for holding an inactive form of anthrax. Such threats have rarely gone beyond just talk. Nonetheless, militants in this country are poised to take advantage of the current climate of panic.
In their deranged outlook in the world, it presents to them not a crisis, but an opportunity.
Of the more than 100 anthrax hoaxes at abortion clinics this week, many were linked to the Army of God, a militant anti-abortion group.
These days, if you send white powder to an abortion clinic, you can be pretty well assured that the clinic will be shut down.
They understand that the FBI has a limited amount of manpower.
Another worry, that law enforcement is too busy to keep track of homegrown militants who in the past have turned their hatred into destruction. Michelle Norris, ABC News, Washington.
We've had another example of how nervous people are about anthrax after a flight was grounded because of a suspicious but harmless white powder. Northwest Airlines pulled artificial sweeteners and powdered coffee creamer from all of its flights. Sugar and salt will still be available. In the national briefing tonight, Wall Street ended a cautious week. There had been nervousness about the many corporate earnings reports, but most of them turned out just as expected or even stronger. One analyst did tell us he's never been so glad that it was Friday. The Dow Jones Industrial Average today was up 40 points to close at 9,204, down 140 points for the week. The NASDAQ was up 18 points today, down 32 points for the week. Americans who receive Social Security will get a smaller cost of living increase next year than they did in 2001. Because inflation was low, payments will increase by only 2.6%. The average monthly check for retirees will increase from $852 to $874 in January. When we come back, the charity and the challenge. How will $1 billion be distributed?
Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Vioxx, a prescription medicine available from your doctor. Or call 1-888-VIOXX22 for information. Vioxx.
You strive for perfection in the kitchen. Wield highly precise instruments. Test things 500,000 times. Work with tolerances of less than 1/1000th of an inch. You could be making a Delta faucet. Precisely crafted and relentlessly refined, Delta faucets achieve perfection in the kitchen. Even if you can't. Delta, beautifully engineered.
Reading to the kids at the library is the highlight of Fred's week. But some days, his COPD keeps him from being there. Chronic bronchitis or emphysema associated with COPD can keep you from doing simple things.
But now taking Ceravent helps me take fuller breaths.
Nothing can reverse COPD, but taking Ceravent twice a day can help improve your lung function around the clock. Ceravent should not replace fast-acting inhalers for sudden symptoms or be taken more than twice a day. Some people may experience increased blood pressure, heart rate, or changes in heart rhythm. Ceravent is a prescription medicine and may not be right for everyone. Tell your doctor if you have a heart condition or high blood pressure, or take MAOIs or tricyclic antidepressants. Ask your doctor if Ceravent is right for you.
And start taking fuller breaths.
Hello, Mrs. Lindsay. William?
Hello, Stephen.
You're not by any chance computer shopping, are you?
Mm-hmm. If I can get some help.
Well, right now, you can get a complete Dell system with an Intel Pentium 4 processor, which is so nice, for only $899.
Really?
She's intrigued. Excellent. Because right now, you can get free shipping. Unbelievable. And as far as service and support, Dell's won more awards than any other PC company in the last 5 years. Just call or go online. Tell them what you want, and right to your front door comes America's favorite PC.
Thanks, Stephen.
Now you can get a Dell desktop with an Intel Pentium 4 processor, which delivers performance where you need it most. And 6 months of DellNet by MSN Internet access for just $8.99. Call or go online today, and shipping is free. There's great deals on notebooks, too.
Dude, you're getting a Dell.
Easy to buy, easy to own, easy as Dell.
Sunday, the military's new top officer in his first interview since taking command, plus Senate leaders Daschle and Lott on the anthrax threat. 3 exclusives you can't miss on This Week.
We're going to take a closer look tonight at the greatest outpouring of charitable giving in memory and the challenge of actually spending the money. 7 in 10 Americans have given to organizations involved in relief and recovery after September the 11th. The Chronicle of Philanthropy estimates that more than $1 billion has now been raised, and most of this money has not been distributed. Here's ABC's Cynthia McFadden on the challenge.
The face of giving, from neighborhoods to telethons.
Tell everybody to give money. Then what?
It's a good question, partly because charities are permitted by law to give away money based solely on need, not sympathy. And figuring out who needs what takes time. Does the secretary's family need more than the stockbrokers? More than the janitor's kids?
We kind of lived paycheck to paycheck. We didn't know savings.
Patty Schwartz lost her husband, Mark, an emergency medical technician. She has 2 kids in college, no pension, and very little life insurance.
They keep saying there's millions and billions of dollars,
and don't worry. They keep saying, don't worry.
We don't know realistically how much money we're going to get of that.
At this point, neither does anybody else. ABC News Primetime and Business Week compiled the most up-to-date list of the money raised. The Red Cross and United Way control a whopping 75% of all donations. More than 180 or so other groups control the rest of the $1 billion. But so far, only about 10% of the total, approximately $100 million, has been given away, primarily for emergency needs. This month's rent, next week's medicine. New York's Attorney General Eliot Spitzer, who watched the first tower collapse from his office window, is concerned about how the bulk of the money is going to be used.
Our obligation in government is to make sure that those in the public who have opened their wallets, who have given so generously, feel comfortable and know that those charitable funds are used properly.
The Attorney General is consulting with Nancy Anthony, who supervised how the $40 million charitable dollars that flowed into Oklahoma City after the bombing of the federal building was spent.
Do you have any doubt that distributing this $1 billion is going to be hard?
I think it's going to be awful.
Anthony says what's most important is creating a list of beneficiaries.
So that one charity knows what another charity is doing. Let's prevent duplication. Let's prevent waste. Let's make sure that all the needs are met.
Especially for those most in need.
I'd rather him come home, really, than any money. It's terrible that in a time of my dad's death, we need money, but we weren't expecting him to go.
Cynthia McFadden, ABC News, New York.
How complicated is it? Well, there were about 8,000 people on the list after the Oklahoma City bombing. In New York, it could be tens of thousands. And one major charity, the Red Cross, refuses to have anything to do with the list. They say they are concerned about privacy. When we come back, a woman takes a flight today to honor her husband.
Gotta go right now. Gotta go, gotta go, gotta go. Gotta go, gotta go, gotta go right now. Gotta go, gotta go, gotta go.
I have to go now.
If an overactive bladder makes you go and go and go, go to your doctor and ask about Detrol LA.
Gotta go, gotta go, gotta go.
Just one daily dose works for 24 hours to help control bladder contractions and reduces accidents and bathroom visits.
You need a break? Not right now.
Prescription Detrol LA. You shouldn't take it if you have certain kinds of stomach, urinary, or glaucoma problems. The most common side effects are dry mouth, constipation, abdominal pain, and headache.
And I don't have to go right now.
Ask your doctor about Detrol LA when you've always got to go.
Now, the same Caltrate that helps fight bone loss may help your colon too. In a recent study, Caltrate helped reduce the risk of recurrence of colon polyps, a risk factor for colon cancer. The same Caltrate you take for your bones, now for colon health too.
If you have osteoarthritis, you owe it to yourself to learn about Celebrex. Celebrex specifically targets only the COX-2 enzyme, a key source of arthritis pain. Celebrex relieves arthritis pain, plus inflammation and stiffness too. Celebrex should not be taken if you've had aspirin-sensitive asthma or allergic reactions due to aspirin or other arthritis medicines, or certain drugs called sulfonamides. In rare cases, serious stomach problems, such as bleeding, can occur without warning. Tell your doctor if you have kidney or liver problems. Powerful 24-hour relief from osteoarthritis pain, inflammation, and stiffness. Ask your doctor about Celebrex, the #1 selling brand of prescription arthritis medicine.
Ocean Spray is fortified with as much vitamin C as orange juice, so it's good for your whole body. Just leave the juicing to us. Ocean Spray. Crave the wave.
I'm Paul Lenman. Coming up next on K2 News, police don't know who this little girl is or who she belongs to. Tonight, the search for clues. Are local schools prepared for a biological attack? We talked to a school nurse. Portland could shut down if workers decide to strike. And some malls are saying no to trick-or-treaters this year. Next on K2.
Just the very latest development in the day, as far as we can tell. Sources at the Pentagon saying that an operation involving special forces is underway in Afghanistan. To be specific, it involves the Army Rangers, but obviously the Pentagon doesn't want to say any more than that because the operation is underway, but they are, we are told, going after a Taliban target. Finally, from us this evening, a gesture today by a woman that impressed many people.
Welcome his wife.
We're already familiar with Lisa Beamer. She was there with the First Lady when the President paid tribute to her husband and the others on United Flight 93, who had apparently prevented hijackers from flying into another building on the 11th. And today, Mrs. Beamer flew United, the same regular flight her husband took from Newark to San Francisco.
I've decided to fly commercially today because I want to support our president in his effort to encourage Americans not to be held captive by terrorism.
It cannot have been easy. Some hours later, when she arrived on the West Coast, she had a message for all Americans.
What happened on September 11th, particularly on Flight 93, teaches us all a lesson that it's not up to someone else to take care of us or to take care of other people. We all have individual responsibilities to do that, and certainly we can be victorious when we put our courage and our character forward.
That is our report on World News Tonight. Coming up next on World News, next week to be precise, the missed opportunities to apprehend the hijackers before September the 11th, at least one of them. Are the government agencies involved in the investigations up to the task? And will all this spell the end of Halloween? Don't forget Nightline later this evening. I'm Peter Jennings. We hope you have a good weekend. Good night.
Tonight, whoa, a secret romance everyone's getting involved in.
Maybe Sam and Judy are seeing each other.
I think I would notice something.
No, you wouldn't.
A new episode. You are at Judy's house, aren't you?
No. Is someone there?
Once and Again, tonight at 10/9 Central on ABC.